this is David for BigBits, and in this video I want to talk about a new indicator that I've just published and some things we're going to do with this indicator in the future going ahead. Now, I'll go ahead and let you know I've already published this. If you haven't already followed me on Twitter or Discord, there should have been announcements made there. You should see that already, but we are going to be talking in the video about this. If you haven't already seen it, you can go to my profile on TradingView and you can actually search for the script here. I have the link for it directly up on the screen here for you if you want to see that. The easiest way is just to go to my profile. The link for my profile is in the description of the video, so I'd appreciate it if you go and check that out whenever you get a chance if you're curious about this indicator. Now, the indicator is called Stochastic Weights, and this is a basic version of the Stochastic Weights. I'm working on a advanced version, which is going to have some more features, and I'll explain to you what that's going to entail in just a little bit. But for now, we are going to just discuss the Stochastic Weights basic. Now, if you read the name of it, you probably can get an idea of what's going to happen. We are weighting stochastics here. So how are the weights actually applied? Well, the easiest way to do this is to look at our settings. I'll go over the code a little bit later because that's what we do on this channel. We like to talk a bit about the code with PineScript and stuff. But if you're just curious about the indicator itself, I'll go ahead and explain that to you first as part of our model here to show you completed work first and then explain how it actually works. So this is the Stochastic Weights. You'll notice it looks a lot like the actual stochastic indicator, and that's because it actually is the stochastic indicator. We have enabled right now the stochastic and the stochastic RSI. If you're looking at this, you see two lines, and you might be thinking, well, is one of those the stochastic and the other one the stochastic RSI? Well, no. The blue line is the K value, which actually is an average on the stochastic basic between the two enabled stochastics. So the blue line is the average of these two. So you can see if I disable one, this is just the regular stochastic now. And if I switch to just the stochastic RSI, that is just the stochastic RSI. But if I have both of them enabled, they are now weighted equally because there's two enabled, and all of them will be weighted equally, but 50% right now. It's just an average between the two. And you can see that it changed the shape of the stochastic RSI. It was rather flat. You enable the stochastic, there's much more of a dip there now. And if you're looking at just the stochastic, you can see there's a relatively big dip there, where with stochastic RSI, the dip isn't as severe. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And of course, you have all of your basic stochastic options here, such as your K length. Now, the built-in TradingView stochastics are all slow stochastics, which means they are smoothed out 3 periods on their K value. And you might be aware that the fast stochastic, if you've seen my TradingView indicator series about stochastic, you'll know that the fast stochastic is just a 1 period SMA, or the actual K value of the stochastic, and you can actually change this to the fast stochastic just by changing the KMA length to 1. Now, of course, we also have this for the stochastic RSI, but I did want to point out there are a couple of indicators on here that I have created. The stochastic price change, which basically is a volatility measure. Let me just show you. It's much easier to just show you. So you can see when volatility increases in a particular direction, the stochastic PC moves towards the volume direction that it's going. So there was a lot of volume down here, or a lot of volatility down, I should say. So you can see that the average came up here due to the volatility upward there, but once the volatility hit down really hard here in a far way, it came right back down, and when the volatility changed back upwards, then it moved up. So you can also combine that one, of course, with the other ones, and you can see it's smoothing things out even more. And look, you found a divergence here between these two, and that's actually a pretty good divergence. That was a pretty good top there, in my opinion. But back to the settings, there's also the stochastic volume. But before I get into that, the stochastic PC is also a public indicator that's available out there on my profile. So while you're looking for the stochastic weights, if you want to figure out what stochastic PC is about, that's available on my profile as well. Now, if you're curious about the super fast smoothing length, this has to do with the volatility. I wouldn't really recommend changing it because if you have it much lower, the lines move very, very rapidly, and I don't know. I didn't really care for it here, so I always set this to a 1 so that the lines weren't moving, or set this to a 4 so that the lines weren't moving too quick. But you can of course change all those settings that you want. All right, so now we've gotten 3 enabled. Our fourth one is the stochastic volume. It's the same thing as the stochastic price change, except it deals with volume. So it deals with the direction of the volume. So when you get a bunch of green candles, then your stochastic volume will go up. You can see there's a bunch of green candles with volume, they move up. Now red volume pushes it down. And this is just another one that you can throw into the assortment of stochastics here. So now we've got 4 different stochastics enabled, and it makes that divergence even more severe on that one when you have the stochastic volume enabled. And you'll notice you're also not getting a lot of signals outside of the upper and lower bounds here, and that's part of the reason for doing this as well, to eliminate a bunch of the noise from indicators that go too far above or below these bounds by combining them with the other ones. Then we also have the RSI. So this further reduces noise as well, because this is another indicator that's range bound from 0 to 100. So I decided to toss this one in here. It's one of my favorite indicators to use, and it's one of the most popular indicators out there, period, that people use. And since it's range bound from 0 to 100, it made it super easy to weight it together with all of this other stuff. And you can see now it made it very difficult for this to go over the upper bounds. And of course you can change your RSI settings if you wanted to, and it will impact where the lines are on the chart, of course, because they're all weighted. So you've got these things to work with. Let's change this back to 14. Personally, I don't use my indicators on here because I use them for something entirely different. I like to use the stochastic RSI, and the RSI itself. Those are my favorite for this particular setting. They are pretty jagged lines, but I think it does a pretty good idea. Well, I think it does a pretty good job, I should say, of helping you find when things go above the upper bounds and below the lower, and potentially finding an entry. I think it's better than just simply using one or the other, and I also think it's better than trying to look at both of them separately. So instead of having a stochastic and then a stochastic RSI below it, I think this is a little bit easier to look at than having to look at both of them and try and decide if both of them look good, as opposed to just combining them together to see if, just the one indicator looks good because they're weighted together. Let's see, take off the RSI, and of course the values get really high. But one of the things I'm going to be working on, and that is for the advanced stochastic weights, and this is actually going to be, I believe, my first private indicator that I'm going to share with everyone. I don't think it's going to be paid, although we might end up making a strategy out of it, or something out of that might end up being that way eventually. But for now, I will just grant anyone access to it who wants it. And what we're going to be doing is, instead of weighting all of these equally, we're going to add another option to all the indicators and allow you to specify a weighted value. So if we're just using the stochastic and the stochastic RSI, and we wanted the stochastic RSI to be twice as valuable as the stochastic, we would weight it with a value of 2, and the stochastic would be a value of 1, so it would be worth twice as much as the stochastic. So that's going to be the more advanced system. The code isn't really that much more advanced, honestly. Weighting is not an issue, but What I'm also looking to do is add all of the alert and the alert conditions to it. And then also I'm wanting to add the divergences to it as well. So we have that to look forward to going forward. And if you're curious about getting access to the indicator, please comment on the YouTube video. Or if you don't want to put your TradingView username in the comment of the video, you can always reach out to me on TradingView through their messaging feature, or on Twitter or Discord, and send me your user ID, and I'll put you on a list and we'll get you on there to get that one in the future. So I'll go ahead and actually show you that one. I'm not done with it, of course, but I do have the unequal weights completed. So where is that one? Stochastic Weights Advanced. Here we go. So I have some custom settings here, and they are weighted unequal. You can see I gave the stochastic a 5 and the stochastic RSI a 1, and then the RSI, it has a weight of 1 as well. So I value the stochastic very much, and you can see whenever it goes above the upper bounds, it produces a pretty good signal. And look, you don't get that initial bump above the upper bounds here, which might have thrown you off. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was the divergences, excuse me. I'm having a hard time talking in this video for some reason, but you can see here is the divergence, and that is a gigantic divergence in price, but there were only the 2 bumps as opposed to some other indicators where you might have this actually come lower than the original value here. Now, you probably could have picked this up on the stochastic weights, but you might not have been able to pick this up on, like, say, the stochastic RSI, because the stochastic RSI went all the way back down to 0. So we've got that, and what I'm going to do about the divergences is I'm going to try to code in the actual divergences. Let's see. There is an indicator for this that we're going to use for references. You can see how it plots the divergences here. I'm actually going to try to have them plotted on the stochastic weights to show you when the price has moved down and stochastic weights have moved up and it finds a divergence. Hopefully it'll plot it on here, and we'll also get some alerts on that as well. So that's the goal with Stochastic Weights Advanced Indicator. I think it holds a lot more promise than the other ones, but we shall see. And like I mentioned, if you're interested, you can always check that out. So back to the basic here, onto the code. I just want to explain to you just a few things. If you've been following the series, you can always check out this code since it's on my profile. But all we're doing here is we come up with our total weights and our weighted total of our stochastic. So this is the total of all of the stochastic values from 0 to 100, and this is just, in this case, the number of indicators we have enabled. And we're going through and we're calculating all of the indicators, but only if they're enabled, so that we don't waste our resources. But once we have calculated their value, we add 1 to our weights for each indicator, and then we multiply its value times the, well, we don't multiply it here, excuse me, we add its value onto the weighted total already. Now, we would multiply this by how much the weights are, but since this is only weighted 1 time, we don't really need to add the multiplication in there. It's just kind of useless code in this case. So this is how we're doing it. All the calculations, you can see those in here. This is all basic stuff other than the ones that I've created, but you can check those out as well if you want more information on how those actually work. And you can see the K value is just the weighted total divided by the weights. It's just the average between all the indicators we have enabled. Now on the advanced one, we do multiply this by the unequal weights or whatever weight you have selected, so that we can come up with the actual weighted value, the weighted K, and then we just smooth that with a simple moving average using the input for the users there, and then of course it plots it out for you. So that's all there is here. It's pretty basic. I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you understand what the stochastic weights are doing. And if this video was useful for you at all, or if you just enjoyed it, or you just sat here and listened to me talk the whole time, hopefully you liked the video. So please go down and like the video on YouTube. Please leave a comment if you're interested in the advanced version of the indicator, and then also please subscribe while you're down there. That helps a whole lot, and you'll be able to come back and get updates on the stochastic weights and the stochastic weights advanced indicators and anything else that we're going to do. I do have another indicator that I talked about on the live stream earlier that I wanted to share with everyone, and that one will be its own video soon. So we have something called a volatility weighted moving average that we're going to talk about soon too. So please, I've already mentioned it, please like and subscribe, but other than that, thanks. Just have a great day.